But my first guests on the big program have their living history, and they're right here for you, the home viewers on primetime. Yes, you won't see them anywhere else. It's Bill Glenny and Ray D'Addario. Yes, well, Bill, Ray, welcome to the big program.
George,
here.
My pleasure.
And you guys just returned from Washington, D.C.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's the 50th anniversary of the IMT.
The IMT, which is?
And nobody knows it anymore. 50 years ago, it's sad, but it's the International Military Tribunal. And yesterday, it was in the news, 50 years ago, and today it is still in the news because they want to get after some criminals from Bosnia and Rwanda. So we are still in the news.
And so you've been, and you were actually part of history.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, you were the official photographer at the Nuremberg trials.
One of many.
One of many.
I started as a photographer, and then I stayed on for 3 years and got my received my discharge in August, and then I did the same job. I went from the second floor to the third floor, and then I went from as a photographer, I went into public relations.
Oh, and Bill, you were on the other side of the fence.
I was, well, there's two, like I say, there's two different worlds.
There were two sides to the story.
Right.
Two sides. You had the courtroom, which was the most important. All the action was in the courtroom. And you had the prison, which was completely separate. Nobody was allowed in there. No cameras. Very, very few pictures are taken. Ray's fortunate to have some of these pictures. But it was an entirely different world. It's separated. When the men went in the courtroom, these prisoners, you had all cameras and the whole world was watching them at the time. And they had to be at their best. When they come to prison, they were normal. So we caught them when they were normal people. They cried and they had their little problems they went through. Very interesting. So you're getting a good...
It's a history lesson.
Oh, yes.
It's a history lesson for the folks at home. All the kids who are watching, they're hearing the stories told, not by some fantasizing history book writers, but by the people who were actually there.
Correct.
Right.
And actually, we made history there. And 50 years ago, the Nuremberg trials, we made history. And regardless who was there, as I was a guard, Ray was a photographer, we had the lawyers, the course of history was changed through the Nuremberg trials, and we were part of this.
Okay, let's take a look at some of these pictures here.
Here is the Palace of Justice, which is in plain English, it's just the courthouse, but it was the
Palace of Justice sounded better.
Yeah, sounded better, but it was big. It was not for the city, it was for what we would call the county, taking in all the territory. But why did the Nuremberg trials take place here? The city where the people were was all destroyed, was 85% destroyed. But this building did not get bombed, except for one bomb right here at the end. It came down here. So my office was right here.
Oh, you had an office?
Yeah. Oh, yes. My crew right there. Here is the entrance, and I was on the third floor. It was the guards. That is the guards of the building, detailed to the building, are from the Big One, the 1st Infantry Division. And you couldn't get in without a pass, just a simple pass.
So they didn't just let any riffraff into the courthouse like they do here.
No. To see the prison was in the back, and I went upstairs on the roof, and here is the prison 50 years ago. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So Bill was in the prison.
He was in the prison. Just to give you an idea of what the prison looked like, this is a picture that of the cell block used for the defendants in all the trials. That is but these guards were not from
the first trial.
From the first trial. These are the 12 other trials, but everything else is the same.
But from the first trial
was
Well,
in GIs.
Right.
You were there.
We wore green helmets.
Green helmets.
Yeah.
And what else?
Oh, we had no guns, black.
Oh, yeah.
You mean the clubs?
Yes.
Oh, when we would go outside. Well, Ray, you want to tell them that?
Go ahead. You know about this.
See these clubs here? Of course, at that time, when we went out, these clubs here, you know what they were made of? Of course, everything was white. The guards that you see guarding and standing in back of the defendants wore white helmets, white belts, and they had the white gloves and a white club. And the clubs were made out of broom handles.
Broom handles?
Yeah. Broom handles, which were painted white. And unbelievable. But when we were in the cells, we didn't carry these in the cells. We had a blackjack at the time. You'll see right here. There's a screen and a lamp that's hooked up here, which you attach to the cell window, and you watch them sleep. And there was a blackjack also, which you didn't take off unless you opened the cell door, and the prisoners are coming out. Then you'd strap it to your hand. No guns were allowed.
No guns were allowed.
No guns were allowed.
Even with the officers. The prison officers, they had guns.
So you used broom handles to maintain control?
Well, yes. Well, no, at the time we had blackjacks in the cells.
In the cells.
And the officers wore guns. They could come in there, but the ones that were right on the cells could not do that. In other words, well, I'll tell you a little something else before we go on, is the cells had no locks, no keys to open these cell doors. All there was is a bolt at the bottom, which slid right into the wall. So when I'd open up a cell door, you'd lift up this bolt and slide it to the side. You couldn't reach it from the inside. If you put your hand out, you couldn't reach it. It was too low. So this is how we got them out of there. Of course, we'd have a blackjack.
Okay,
continue.
And moving on.
Yeah.
You're seeing
this is another bit of history here.
This is a picture of not in the cell, but a picture made from a Jewish photo album, and it's clearing out the Warsaw Ghetto. Now, the reason I show you this is that I got the original album, which was given to a Polish officer, and the Polish officer gave it to Hitler to show that he did a good job of cleaning out. And these pictures are used all over. This is I copied the pictures for them, and they were used in the trial. The little boy is very, very good. Here we have the Attorney General Francis Biddle. He was the senior American judge. Now, in the courtroom we had 4 judges, only 4, but there was 2, an alternate. So there's 2 Americans, 2 the British, 2 French, and 2 Russian. They made up the judge.
So here we're looking at the inside of the courtroom.
And the 21 are in the dock. But the reason I took the picture is because this is Colonel Andrus, and he was the commandant of the prison. He didn't come to every day in the courtroom, but he was...
Did you know him, Bill?
Yes. See the green helmet? Everybody knows this guy. See the green helmet? These are the kind... Of course, his is shellacked. When he come in, it
would blind you.
Oh, it would. It certainly would. We had regular green helmets, but these are the type of helmets, not the white helmets. The white helmets are the guards that had the perimeter outside, and escort guards also for the prisoners.
This is the interpreters. There's 4, and they would break down the language, and you had earphones. And this is the first time they were ever tried. The earphones were new, and the interpreters were new, and in fact, everything at Nuremberg was new.
So you set new standards in technology at the same time.
We did.
Yes.
Yep. Everybody is listening very, very intently.
And can I just add to that?
Sure.
When you went up as a witness on the stand, there were 2 lights. There's a red... Go ahead, you want to...
No, go ahead. That's right.
There's a red light and a white light. If the red light would go on, that means you're talking too fast and these interpreters can't interpret. So you have to slow down. Then when a white light went on, and the judge now and then would have to stop these witnesses, would you mind speaking slower?
Slowly.
So this is something.
This is a candid shot of the 3 of the defendants here. 1, 2, 3. the two Army boys, taken at the
when they had a break.
When they had a break.
Okay.
There was a little court break in the court had
A recess.
A recess.
A recess in the court action.
Right.
That's it.
Here's a shot taken from the front. You see the judges right there.
This is a wide shot of the whole proceedings.
Wide shot. Here is not a defendant, a witness speaking to the court, and here is a glass enclosure for our sound cameras. We had the sound camera in this spot and another sound camera in that spot. And the still photographers, of which I was over here in the corner. And we could not talk. We could not even, we had earphones, but we didn't use them because you couldn't take pictures and listen to the interpretation at the same time.
Oh, at the same time. Why was that?
Well, it was too disturbing.
Oh, it was too distracting.
It was too distracting. And the film was, now, today's film, we speak of film which is 400 and 1,000,
That's right. They have low-light films today, which most people
we
understand.
Didn't have. We had to shoot on a tripod, and we shot slowly.
You had longer exposures.
Very longer exposures.
Your ASAs back then were what, maybe 25?
Yes, or slower.
Or slower.
Depending, and using our lenses, the big lenses were slow compared to the normal lenses.
Mm-hmm. So, that's right, because it's all on light.
On light.
It's all based on light.
All based on light. This, incidentally, is von Papen, and he's in the conference room in the evening. So this room was set up for them to consult. It happens that von Papen is talking to von Papen. This is his son, his young son.
Father and son von Papen.
Father and son. And they both spoke English. They were both excellent. But von Papen goes back in the Third Reich as the man who put Hitler in power. He has got all the glory.
And Bill, you have a story about this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
He was the Reich Chancellor. Oh, it'll take a little while just to tell it, when I was interviewed, before you go on the cells, you're interviewed by the colonel himself, Colonel Andros, with that shellacked helmet, a little mustache, and a riding crop. He always go around with this riding crop. Well, anyway, he interviews us, gives us all these rules where you'll be in charge of these prisoners one at a time. The prisoners are watched 24 hours a day. So you're on the cells, 2 on and 4 off. So, and they give you these rules. You don't take your eyes off the prisoners no more than 2 seconds at a time.
So it's a staring game.
Oh, yes. And the prisoners aren't allowed to put their hands underneath the blanket. They're not allowed to turn away from the light when they sleep. And they give you all the prisoners, they don't eat with a knife and a fork. All they have is a spoon. Well, all these orders are given to you. So as I first come in, my first night in the cellar, I walked down. The first one I noticed, I looked on the side, and they had these nameplates over the cell doors. So I looked, and I seen Hermann Göring. So I said, "Oh." At that time, he was in cell number 5. At that time, so I said, "Oh, I got to see this." So I went over to Göring's cell, and I looked inside this little window, and he was sitting on his cot. He was reading a book and smoking this meerschaum pipe. So I looked in, and I said it loud enough so he could hear. I said, "So that's Hermann Göring." I said, "Well, he doesn't look like such a big man in prison," and I was rattling off. So the guard pulls me aside, and he says, "Göring can understand English. If he turns you in, you can get court-martialed." So I said, "Well, I better keep my big mouth shut." So I proceeded over to von Papen, my first prisoner. So about 10 o'clock is a curfew. The lights dim, and you set up the screen with this lamp, and you watch them sleep. So I'm setting up this screen, and I was having a little trouble with the light, so he must have knew I was new the way I was fumbling. It was my first time. So he come over in perfect English. I'll tell you the exact words I never forgot. Some things you never forget as long as you live. He says to me, in perfect English, and he spoke better English than I did, believe me. He says, "Would you mind shining the light on the other side of the wall Otherwise, the glare from the light will keep me awake all night. So I thought that was a reasonable suggestion. I said, certainly. So I was fumbling with it, and he says, do you mind if I give you a hand? I says, no. And we used to have these little wires. We used to hook this lamp up, to get it so you can move it a little. So he's working on the inside, and I'm working on the outside, and we're getting this, and we got it set pretty well, it was up shining on the other side of the wall. And I said, how's that? And he said, that's fine. Thank you. I said, you're welcome. And I was saying to myself, gee, what a nice old man. He was old enough to be my grandfather. He was 67 years old. I'm 68 now.
And back then you were...
At that time, I was 18 years old at that time, so I'm looking, I said, what a nice man. He could be my grandfather. I'm a grandfather now. I have grandchildren. So anyway, I said, geez, fine. So he gets in bed. And according to the rules, now I just got all these rules. He puts his hands on top of the blanket according to regulations. Oh, that's fine. Of course, we weren't allowed to talk to the prisoners either, unless, it's very brief. It's got to be brief if we have a conversation with them. The colonel told us also. He says, like if they ask you what time it is, tell them, but no lengthy conversations. So he gets in bed. The first thing you know, one hand goes under the blanket, so I'm thinking, I said, they're breaking the rules there. So I said, well, what, I can't sleep. I couldn't sleep like that. I'd always put myself in a position like this. So the first thing he waits 5 minutes, nothing has happened. He puts the other hand under the blanket. So I'm saying, now what? I says, what am I supposed to do? Wake this poor old man up all night?
That looks like your grandfather.
Yeah. So the first thing he turns over, which he breaks the rules there. And I said to and it did make any sense. Certain rules didn't make any sense, because if we were waking these men up all night, put your hand out, get this up.
Nobody would ever sleep.
That's right. What condition would they be in a courtroom when the world is watching and the cameras are on them? They're falling asleep. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's my first night in prison.
So they had rules, and you never told Herman Goering that he couldn't put his hands under the blanket.
Yeah. Well, Herman didn't put his hands under the blanket. Herman was, he'd be right on top. Some of the prisoners did sleep with their hands up because some of the guards would probably yell at them. But they had a lot of the rules that you just couldn't follow all of these rules. It was almost impossible, if you tried to follow all these rules. Even when we're outside, the prisoners aren't allowed to talk to each other. It's just... you couldn't follow them all. Okay.
So, hey, it was prison the way prison should be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's where they got the name prison. Okay, guys, we're just about out of time here, and this is so interesting. We have more pictures to go through. We're going to have you back on another show.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure. And hey, stick around. We'll be back with more Primetime Magic right after this. Our next guests have been with us before. In fact, one of them has this book right here. You're looking at it on the TV screen. It's filled with a number of wonderful pictures. It's Ray D'Addario and Bill Glenny, our noted historians. Well, Ray, Bill, welcome back to the big program. And we understand, Ray, you have a book to plug. So if people want to go to their local bookstore.
Yes, but not in Nuremberg.
Not in Nuremberg.
In Nuremberg.
In Nuremberg.
Only Nuremberg.
Only Nuremberg.
Right. Now, the book is real new, and it hasn't been published in the States yet.
It hasn't?
No.
And do you think it will be published in the States at some point?
I hope so.
We'll get some good distribution. Then they can come over, find you at the house, and you can sign autographs. And you have one very interesting picture in this book.
One.
Actually, you have many very interesting pictures in the book, but one that you probably won't find anywhere else.
That's right. I took this picture of Herman Goering, and he's after lunch upstairs in a separate room. He wasn't allowed to talk with the other prisoners. I took one shot of him in color we used 4x5 sheets of film, which today is too expensive, and it's no longer in use. But they gave us very good pictures.
Good high-resolution pictures. And
the color is still good. After 50 years, the color is still Kodachrome. You can't beat. You can't beat.
And who knows what our videotape's going to look like in 50 years.
The film was very slow. also. So that is one reason why we have good film today.
And it was a longer exposure time. And,
Yes. All right.
So anyway, yes, if you folks would like to pick up the book, just travel over to Nuremberg.
Or for me.
or from Ray. Call Ray at the house.
Or for me.
And he can autograph it for you.
Yes.
We're continuing through this pile that of pictures that we left off with before, this fine collection.
Now, while they were reading and having their time between the eating process or the lunch period, Ribbentrop is here shown in the stands, speaking with his lawyer. One guard is separate them, and he's been called to discuss his problems as a defendant. So, but the important thing, he is defendant Ribbentrop, but he doesn't look like himself. That is because as a PW, number one, he lost his will to be a leader with a fancy uniform, and he has lost weight because he doesn't have big dinners anymore.
So he let himself go.
Yes, in a way. Incidentally, going back to dinner upstairs, here's a picture of Stryker. Now, Julius Stryker, during the noon lunch, is getting... there's his dinner plate.
Mess kit.
Mess kit. It wasn't a dinner plate.
Well, we call it a dinner plate. It was a dinner plate. But the thing is...
And what was the usual meal consisting of?
Well, it was vegetables.
Vegetables?
Yeah, they had a piece of meat, usually a vegetable, and then probably potatoes or something. Just small, little portions. Yeah.
Okay, so it was health food.
Oh.
Yeah. And these are all the utensils that they used by the kitchen. Let's go back to room 57. Room 57 was the room in which the defendants were brought over from the prison at night. Even if they didn't have anything important to talk about, they still came over to room 57 because they got an hour or 2 hours out of the prison. They didn't want to be in the little cell. In the prison, you could talk what they have in the prison: a cot, a chair.
That's it.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, they had very few things in it. They had a cot that was bolted up against the wall. You couldn't move it,
and you couldn't stand on it.
You couldn't stand on it either.
Well, the table is the one.
The table, yes.
The table was just a little flimsy metal table, which is collapsed. You'd probably put 40 pounds or 60 and it would collapse, automatic. So, and then you had one chair that would come out somewhere around 7 o'clock at night. Then you had an alcove where the toilet was. And no seat cover. It was just porcelain toilet bowl. And it was real cold in the mornings, geez. And there was one fellow that did commit suicide in there before the trials.
Started, yep.
This is before I come into the picture, in other words, before they put one guard for each prisoner. They had one man probably covering...
They had one guard for each prisoner?
Yes.
Yes, after this man committed suicide. But before that, there was one guard taking care of maybe 4 or 6 prisoners, and he'd probably just look in once in a while. But well, we won't go into this. But I'll tell you a little incident that happened with Goring. When I went in, we're going to go into the church. This is going through my mind.
Go ahead.
Okay. When I the first man I took to church was Hermann Goring. So
he was a church person.
Well, the only reason he put me in there is to get out of the cell.
That's all.
To get out of this little 4x6 cell.
Exactly.
Right.
So the church was located on the 2nd floor. So when I left Goring out, put the blackjack on, just open the cell door, pushed the bolt back, and I'm saying, gee, it's on the 2nd floor, but it was my first time. And Goring knew exactly where to go. He gets out. He's always fast. Goes upstairs. Then he goes in, right in the front, sits down, and well, I'll tell you exactly. I never forgot that because he embarrassed me so much. He half sat on a chair, half kneeled, and he put his hands right on the railing like this, and I come in right next to him, as straight as a board, and I sat right next to him. And they still held their rank. See, we were in the front, so the rest of the prisoners never got in front of Goring, because that would be insulting. So they all got back, so I didn't know what was going on at the back, and I'm right next to him. All of a sudden, he turns around, gives me a look like this. He just kept staring, and I'm looking down at him. Unbelievable. And I'm saying to myself, you know, I just come out of parochial school, 18 years old, stupid upstairs. So I'm wondering what's wrong. So I'm looking at Goring, and he's staring at me, and I'm saying to myself, I'm the guard. You're the prisoner.
Yep.
You know, it didn't work. It didn't work. So I'm like this, and I'm saying to myself, something's wrong. He's just staring at me, and I'm saying, something's wrong here, you know. So I glance over on the side like this. All the other guards are standing up against the wall. I look on the other side. They're all up against the wall. I'm the only guard sitting with his prisoner, kneeling with his prisoner there. And meanwhile, Goring is still like this. So I says, mistake. You're 18 years old, you make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, well, and how did you get out of the mistake?
Well, with difficulty, I held my composure as much as I could. I slowly got out, went to the back of the church. After that, every time he'd go out of his way, you know, he'd come out of his cell one time, I'll never forget. He used to give me the dirtiest looks, and he could give you a look. He used to start with me, right at my shoes, and come up like this. You know how to give a person a dirty look?
He'd just stare you up.
And then I was collecting autographs at the time. And, you know, I got quite a few autographs, but I waited for Goring because I said to myself, he's not going to give me his autograph. He hates me. The man hates me. Then I got quite a few of the autographs at the time, and I said to myself, wait a minute. What's he going to do? I'll ask him. There's nothing he can do. Good idea. So I got up my courage. You know, it took a little bit to do this. So I come up to, and by that time I had a routine. I had these pieces of paper. I have and a pen. So I stuck it in there, and I says, Herman, your autograph. And he turns around, he gives me this dirty look again. And I'm just looking at him like this. He's looking at me, and you know what was going through my head? I'm saying to myself, he's not going to give it to me. And I begin feeling sorry for myself. God darn it, he's got me again, you know. And I was just about ready to pull, you know, embarrassed. I was really embarrassed. You know, I was just about ready to pull back. He comes over, grabs the pen, grabs the pencil, or the pen and the paper. He sits at his little table, puts down Herman, writes his name. He hands it back to me, and he says to me in English, in 50 years, this will be valuable. It's the only conversation I ever had with Goring. That was it.
And do you still have the autograph?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And is it valuable?
Yes.
I don't know. I never checked.
Yeah.
They're in a safety deposit box. I never did check.
You should have it appraised.
I just can't do that. You know,
we keep our things ourselves.
Maybe that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
You never know. You could be sitting on a gold mine.
Well, but
I don't
that's if he's right.
If he's right.
That's it, yeah.
Good. Here's Albert Speer. And this is
Who is Albert Speer?
Albert Speer, you want to know what he is? Here he is. All those things. But he is the important thing about who he is he was the architect, Hitler's architect. Mm-hmm. Whenever there was a building to be built, he did it. But he had a large staff. And he was in the party, but he was not an official, not as we called it, a big party man, a military man. He was a worker. And he did do some beautiful buildings.
He was a civilian.
Yes, he was a civilian.
And he was also in charge of armaments
at the end of the war.
And munitions, yeah.
Ammunition. This happens to be General Telford Taylor, who has presented the case against the German High Command. He headed the subsequent proceedings. He came in at the first trial, which is the Nuremberg trial.
Right. And he was also at the reunion.
Yes, at the reunion.
So you met him down in Washington, D.C.
We did.
Recently?
Yes, we did. Albert Speer is on the stand.
Mm-hmm. Another shot of Albert Speer. This one's in color.
In color. He had 20 years 20 years. He's served his 20 years up in Spandau. He's out, and he's written, I think, 3 books on it. But today he is gone. Now, you have to remember prosecutor Robert Jackson. He was the instigator. He was first he was assigned by Truman, President Truman, to conduct the Nuremberg trials, but he also had to serve on the proceedings. So he had 2 jobs. It was a lot of work for him. He was a good man, but he died too early.
And
here are rounding up. This was little pictures on film, on small film, 8mm film, and we blew them up
as large as you possibly could.
Yeah, which is the size here, and it shows up the rounding up the Jews in Poland. Now comes the more important of the 21 in Nuremberg. Hermann Goering, Hess, Keitel, Jodl, Ribbentrop, Raeder. Some don't look the way they seemed before. When they were in uniform, they were, you would say, made up. Today, they're already...
So they were like actors portraying their parts.
They were their actors.
And this fellow right here.
Oh, God, yes.
Ernest Kaltenbrunner.
Brunner. He's head of the police.
Right. Himmler committed suicide,
Right.
so he more or less replaced him.
Replaced him.
And he was 6'7". He was a giant of a man. And too bad you can't see the rest of his face, but you could...
Scars.
Yeah, he had scars. We used to call him Scarface. And I used to look at this man in the prison. Now, of course, Goring was known as Fatso.
Fatso.
You know?
Goring was Fatso. Did anybody call him Fatso?
No. But he had, speaking of Goering, he had a big head, like you.
Oh, well, thank you for that compliment.
He was a big man.
He was, yeah.
Very big. Here is the defendant Ribbentrop on the stand, and he was the foreign minister. He tried to call as his witnesses some of the people in England, but he was a broken man. He doesn't look himself like he did.
And I might add, in the prison, he was, how could you say, the sloppiest person in there.
Yeah.
He used to write, he'd write a note or something. He'd just take it, crumbled up the paper, and throw it on the cell. And
he didn't care.
The cell was a mess.
Yeah.
We're very poor housekeeping.
Oh, very poor. Yeah.
Here is Lieutenant Gilbert. He was a prison psychologist, and he was all over. I say all over in the sense of the word that he was in the courthouse, he was in the prison, he was in the church, he was all over the place. He had a past that carried a lot of weight, and he wrote a book.
He wrote a book also.
Yeah, he wrote a book. As the years went by, everybody wrote a book. If you were somebody, everybody wrote a book.
Everybody wanted to cash in.
Well.
On the deal, right? And he was the psychologist.
Yes, he was the prison psychologist.
Yeah,
there were many, not one, about 3.
Oh, Kelly was one.
Kelly was before him.
And everybody had their own viewpoints with their own individual
The
books.
name of his book was The Nuremberg Diary by Gilbert.
Here we have another wide shot of the courtroom.
There's all the judges on the bench, and then they have the court stenographers, the defendant's counsel. Here is Justice Jackson, who is giving, who is questioning, and the witness is Karl Bodenschatz. He was the commander of the Air Force, but he was a supreme commander of the Air Force. But there were many departments in the Air Force. There was also Milch, and there were others. They had plenty of planes, but they didn't make it in time. Incidentally, you have to remember back 50 years ago that the war almost changed for us because they had the first jet planes, but there weren't enough of them. They weren't enough.
So they didn't have enough, but they did have the first jet planes.
Yes, they had the first jet plane. And when I heard it, here goes a plane. It goes fast and no propeller. I didn't know what it was. It was something to remember. These are all the Nuremberg days. Hans Frank, a very, very important man, but brutal. And he was the Gauleiter, or the leader of Poland. And he went to being brutal to soft. He became a Catholic, and he died on the gallows.
That's right. They called him, they nicknamed him the Butcher of Poland.
The Butcher of Poland.
The Butcher of Poland, because Auschwitz was there. And when he when he was in his cell, he used to read this book continuously, and I said to myself, what the heck is he reading? And he'd get up and talk to himself. And he'd sit back down. So I asked one of the fellows, what's he reading? You know what he was reading in there? The Bible. He turned completely religious.
Yeah. And at one time, he was the Butcher of Poland.
That was his nickname, the Butcher of Poland.
He had plenty of power.
And Goering was fatso, so.
Well, we had these nicknames he used to give him.
Here is Colonel General Jodl, who was the head of the army, but he wrote he wrote a couple of orders, and as a result, he was also hung. We got plenty of pictures here.
We've gone through plenty of pictures. Yes. We have a few other snapshots, however, from your recent trip to Washington D.C. This was the 50th reunion.
Yep.
And you have a few items here. You have a watch.
Yes. Yeah. This was taken by Dr. Latimer, who's in there.
We have a shot here of Dr. Latimer.
Okay, that's...
And you're here with Dr. Latimer.
Yes. Okay, here he is. This is Dr. Latimer. We're holding the pen that Adolf Hitler gave to Eva Braun. This is the pen here. He come up to our suite where we had, so he just showed us these articles that he had. This is the pen that Adolf Hitler gave to Eva Braun. This is the watch that belonged to Tex Wheelis. When Tex Wheelis used to go bragging. He went all around the prison. You've probably seen this watch. And he showed us the back of it, and it was engraved Hermann Goring. So I was looking at this watch. I says, if he can get the watch, then I can get the pipe. I had my eye on that Meerschaum pipe. Well, I don't know who got it. I didn't get it anyway. But this is the capsule. It's a shell that Hermann Goring committed suicide with. It's a little shell that you opened up, and there was a glass vial of cyanide in there. This is what Goring used to commit suicide. This is the ring that Goring had. It's a German ring with the seal, a German seal on there. And this was a matchbox cover. It's all gold. There's an eagle and swastika right here at the bottom. Yeah. It's all gold, and it's used to hold these wooden matches. And it was quite a reunion we had.
Incidentally, there were 3 vials of poison, three of them, and it was the third one that they didn't find, but Goering knew where to get it, and he had access to it, and he died a couple of hours before he was to be hung. As a result, the colonel never was promoted to general. Colonel Andrus never was promoted to general. It was a sort of a tug of war between Andrus, the commander of Nuremberg, and Goering, the 2 big figures.
Well, guys, this has been very interesting, taking a brief trip back 50 years into history, and very, very interesting.
Well, thank you.
And told history as told by the people who were actually there.
Right.
You won't read this in any book. You won't see this on any other television show, but right here on Primetime.
That's correct.
I'm glad we have the exclusive. Bill,
George,
it's been a pleasure. Ray.
Thank you. Thank you.
And, hey, you're welcome back anytime. By the way, check out the book. You can only get it in Nuremberg right now, but soon coming to a bookstore near you. Hey, stick around. We'll be back with more Primetime right after this.